Hello, everyone. I'm Colin Tessier of WrestleZone.com. I'm joined by John Clark to talk about WWE NXT 2.0. John, how you doing?
Good. How about you?
Doing pretty well. For anyone that I should have said to start off, we did not do the Raw show yesterday. We had a scheduling change, so I worked in the morning, whereas I usually work at night. And I didn't want to subject myself to Raw, or at least all 3 hours. If I didn't have to, I caught up on it this morning. Breezing through the commercials. So we're back on track, though. Here we are on Tuesday night to talk about NXT. The show was taped tonight. Now, thankfully, I myself did not have it spoiled for me. So I was hoping for something. And I don't know. It just felt like a very nothing show. Like, stuff happened. There were things, things developed to some degree. But just the whole time, just felt like nothing was really happening. Like, it was more so anything just like, I guess maybe it felt like just a stopgap until the Great American Bash. I mean, we know that's 2 weeks away now. Next week's the go-home show. They loaded that up a little bit more. Even the card tonight seemed fine on paper, but then that's kind of the stuff in between didn't blow me away. But we'll dive right in. The show opened with a match between Cello, Sakoa, and Grayson Waller. Two of the brightest stars here on NXT 2.0. Solo has been very, very protected pretty much the whole time he's been on the show. He very rarely loses. The crowd loves him. He's felt like he's kind of on that precipice of, being a champion, or at least challenging. He has challenged for titles, but he feels like he's right there. At the very least, the crowd loves him. And before this match, it just seemed like one that he was going to win. Like, this felt like just a good way to kind of give him a win against an established name. And in the end, Grayson Waller won. Grayson Waller used an exposed turnbuckle and got the win, leading me to believe there will be a rematch, maybe at American Bash. But I thought this was a pretty good match to open the show. And again, I was pretty surprised by the outcome here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they've been pushing Solo Sakoa to like heights that we haven't really seen a lot before. But I don't know. I thought the result kind of made sense in the end with the story they're trying to tell. I'm not convinced that Solo's going to win the gold anytime soon. I mean, maybe soon, but I don't think right yet. We've said before about Hayes not necessarily wanting to drop the title too soon. But what are your thoughts about that in general, about possibly him losing?
I was a little worried that Carmelo Hayes will lose the title tonight, because they were really building up the main event title match where Carmelo defended against Tony D'Angelo. I mean, anything can happen, obviously. It was like there was something, I don't know. It felt like Tony really needed this big win, or even if not, they need it so much that he was coming off a big win in your house when he defeated Legado on that 6-man. I was like, it kind of felt like he had a lot of momentum. Kamel had plenty as well. He just got the title back. So not that I'm advocating for that. It just felt like this might be a spot where they might give him a big win like that to give him a title. He has not had a title yet, and he's been featured since he arrived on NXT 2.0. That was last fall now, so he's been built up pretty nicely. He is the self-proclaimed Donovan NXT, so it felt like a chance to do that. Spoiler alert, we'll talk about it later. He did not win the title. Kamel retained. They set up another potential contender, or at least kind of feud maybe with Wesley. We'll talk about that as well. But Solo Sikoa does feel like really the favorite at this point. If Carmelo has a title match at American Bash, I would expect it to be him potentially. But then, like I said, that Wesley thing makes me think we might see something there. I don't know. I feel like they risk kind of, by not riding that hot hand, they risk, I guess, kind of squandering Solo's momentum. Again, the crowd loves him. Like, the crowd goes crazy for this guy. He's gotten over like very quickly, very consistently. The crowd's always going crazy for him. And to some degree, I feel like that they should capitalize on that. And again, if they don't, I wonder, if that might be a misstep waiting to happen. Again, to give them at least, I'm not saying the NXT title, but at least this kind of, the North American title, establish them a little more. We'll see what happens next. We've been talking about from the start, it feels like he's going to join the Bloodline at some point. But I was sitting here probably a month ago thinking he was going to beat Carmelo Hayes or something, and he didn't. He lost to him, and now he lost to Grayson Waller. Again, admittedly, a little tainted finish in that sense, but I guess I would expect a rematch, and then maybe he'll win the title. Maybe like the SummerSlam weekend show, if I'm doing that, they'll blow up to it a little bit more. But again, it feels like they might kind of risk squandering that momentum, and then I feel like it might be a good time to do it at some point soon. But regardless, we're talking about that North American title match. Again, we had this built up as a big fight feel. We had 2 interviews throughout the night. The one with Tony D'Angelo, he was talking about how with Legado being under his umbrella now, it was a big night. He said there was, as always, with any takeover, there was some kind of conflict, there's some adjustment when you have this takeover. But he said it's a big night. He's challenging for the title. Legado was facing John, help me out. Who did they face? Legado faced goodness gracious, it's my notes. Roderick Strong, Damon Kemp. They faced them, and they're a pretty underestablished team, or at least a pretty new team. And I think we've seen them once before, so it's not like they're this established team. Legado is definitely, we've seen them team up plenty of times. I guess we'll jump into that one. Roderick Strong, Damon Kemp, again, more of this diamond mine dissension conflict. Roderick Strong, he like slapped Damon Kemp to kind of fire him up. Damon Kemp, very impressed with him, what we've seen so far. In the end, some dissension or botched interference from, I think it was 2 Dimes in this case, cost got out of the match. So yet even more conflict. I guess this was a one tense group met the other. In the end, Legado and Tony D's family had more conflict. So Diamond Mine got the win. Roderick Strong and Damon Kemp looked pretty good. Damon Kemp has been impressive to me. He has this kind of natural athleticism. Like, he reminds me of kind of like a Braun Breaker. There's something kind of legitimate about him. Like, he's got the wrestling sling. He reminds me of the Creed brothers, and they're in the same stable, but maybe in a more kind of a less direct sense. It's something like that. He comes across as a natural. He feels very believable. So I've been impressed with him so far, and I was happy to see him in this match with Roderick Strong.
I mean, yeah, it was definitely a nice change of events. I'm still like trying to wonder, like, with the Roderick Strong thing, like, what are we exactly doing here? Like, is he going to stick around? Is he kind of like, going to work his way out of the stable or the company, or just that question's been there for quite a while now, and I'm not really sure like what the end result is going to be, because they've kind of given mixed signals. One week it kind of seems like he's here to stay with the group. One week there's kind of some hesitance if he's going to leave or if he's going to do something specific to cause more tension like he's been. I'm just not quite sure. It doesn't appear like they made up their mind, because you see this back and forth, and it just doesn't feel like anything's been concrete, like a direction has been given to them at this point.
But yeah, it does feel like they're in this kind of purgatory of some sense, or like, that they don't exactly know what they're doing. We even see the Creed brothers tonight, the tag team champions. We had obviously Roderick and Damon there, but as Steven points out, there's nothing really for Roderick Strong right now in a more general sense. He's with Diamond Mine. We talked about it before. The group has had so many changes over the years, over the time that they've been together. People getting released. They've kind of it's been a stop and start thing from the get go. Anytime they kind of get any momentum, these external things influence it. Creed brothers won the tag titles, but now Roderick Strong. Again, I guess it would have made. We'd be having a different conversation if we saw the Creed brothers. They continue that story tonight. Maybe this is just a step in that story. Hey, Roderick Strong and Damon won. Maybe this will be. They could eventually try to challenge for the tag titles themselves. I don't know what the end game is with that. It is a shame. Roderick, we talked about it before. Roderick Strong, so very talented, one of the best wrestlers on the roster. Brilliant veteran mind. I mean, you hear people talk about him, and you could just probably assume he's been around the business for so long now. He's definitely got that veteran expertise. And even if he's not being featured as a champion, as a main event guy, there's sometimes where it's felt like he's not featured at all. So again, I was like, the bar is low. I was happy he was on the show. He got a win. But overall, it does feel like they're kind of just, spinning the wheels a little bit. But I'm not sure where this is really going. We didn't even see Ivy Nile either. This is all about Roderick and David Kemp here. So I'm not sure exactly.
That's what I was going to say next, is what's been going on in that area, because it seems like they've kind of given up on after they did the workout thing they did backstage or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think she may have gone. Ivy may have gone over to NXT UK for some tapings. So this show was taped as well, so I'm not sure exactly how the timing worked out there. But it could also be that she just wasn't on the show. I don't know. But speaking of being taped here, then an interesting matter of timing. We talked about this last week, but just to bring it up, because 2 Dimes wasn't on the show tonight. Steven points out this will be probably the last show for 2 Dimes. Troy Donovan, unfortunately, he got released. Was, I guess, not this past week and the one before that, but the show got taped multiple episodes at a time.
Yeah.
And so it just worked out. He was at the taping, and I think he got released. I think that next weekend. So just how the cookie crumbled in this case. Worth pointing out, the report that he got released noted that he was reportedly told he might get brought back in a year, but so much happens in a year.
Who knows if they'll even want to at that point,
Well, who knows if they want to, or the last show for 2 times. If he comes back, it may not be as 2 times. Who even knows? That remains to be seen. We're talking about some tag team matches here. Definitely a tag team wrestling big theme of the show tonight because we had Katana Chance and Caden Carter face the Alyssa Leon and Valentine Froze. I never even know their names because they're not on the show very much. It was a fine tag team match. We saw this. I looked up because I wasn't sure about what their names were. They had the match, I think, back in December or so. They may have had a match also in the women's Dusty. I'm not as certain about that. But I looked up. We've definitely had this match before on NXT. As you might expect, Casey and Caden won. I was a little surprised that they won because they've had title matches before. So I was like, okay, they won, so they're going to remain in the title picture, and then we didn't have to wait long to figure out the implications of that. So they won. Granted, the women's tag division in NXT. I mean, when your competition's the main roster tag division on the women's side of things, it's pretty easy to say that you're doing pretty well. They've got 3 teams that are somewhat regularly featured. The main roster not so much at this juncture. So Casey and Katana won, Katana and Caden won. Sorry, and then they wound up confronting Roxanne Perez and Cora Jade. Roxanne confronted Toxic Attraction and said, as much as I want to be the NXT Women's Champion, it would mean all the much more to me to win the tag team titles with my best friend Cora Jade. And at that point, Katana and Caden came out and they confronted them because they said, we're not done. We want a title shot. They brawled. We'll have a number 1 contender match next week. The winner will face Toxic Attraction for the women's tag titles at Great American Bash. Feels like that is pretty much a lock that Roxanne and Cora are going to win. We've seen Katana and Casey have damn it, Katana and Caden. All these K names, John, I can't take it. Katana and Caden.
Well, I'll tell you, the result I thought was a foregone conclusion. I don't think there was any, question about who's going to win tonight. I don't think there's any question about who's going to win next week either. It's a little weird to me that they're choosing to kind of go for this compared to the singles. Of course, with winning the breakout tournament and all that, there was different opportunities that could have come up. But I think this is finally where Toxic Attraction begins losing. I mean, it would have to be, you think, right?
I do think I would tend to agree. I mean, Cora's been built up very well. Roxanne's on fire. She won the women's breakout tournament. She's been booked like a very promising young star since she arrived in NXT, and we see that every week. Again, I'm biased, but I've been very impressed. So I hope. Well, it's weird. We talked about it when they first started teasing this. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of Cora Jade, so I don't really want her to be teaming with Roxanne, if that makes sense. But I'd be happy if they won because I mean, Roxanne's doing well. That Roxanne would have a tag title. It's a bit of a mixed bag of situation there for me as a fan, at least. I do think the match will be good. Steven said he's looking forward to it. Should be a good test of Cora and Roxanne. I mean, Katana and Caden always have good tag team matches. They're very established. They've been on NXT for a couple of years at this point. They're definitely established veterans at this juncture. So I think it will be a good test for them in that case, especially as a tag team. I don't think we've seen them work together as a tag team all that much compared to some of the other title matches we've seen for Toxic Attraction, at least for the tag titles. Yeah, this does feel like a pretty possible, if not probable. It does feel like a pretty big threat to the reign as the tag team champions. And we talked about this when Roxanne first won the breakup tournament. It feels like this is a good way to kind of to draw it out. I do think they are telling the longer story of Roxanne versus Mandy. Mandy had promo tonight talking about, Roxanne thinks she's on top of the world, all her dreams coming true. And she said, there's no way she can imagine my title around her waist. Like, it's not going to happen and all that kind of stuff. So it does feel like that's more of the long-term kind of thing. And if they do that, I would definitely give them credit. Like, that would actually be, pretty clear point A to point B of the story, the team is skewed now. They're going to do the tag title thing. I don't know. The timeline will be if Roxanne and Cora win the tag titles, I don't know if they would still do. We talked about before if they would still do like the SummerSlam show. I mean, American Bash is already in the first week of July. If it's a SummerSlam show, SummerSlam weekend show, that's the end of July. They could do champion versus champion, but don't know about that.
Yeah, I don't think they would do that.
But I don't know. I think this is. I guess I'd want Roxanne Cora to win. I think it would be a good time to kind of start to chip away at this dominance of Toxic Attraction. Steven points out or predicts at some point, possibly soon, Toxic Attraction are going to lose all the titles, maybe go with the main roster. I think main roster could use them. So this could be the first step towards that. But would you agree that this feels like maybe we are still going toward Roxanne versus Mandy Rose at some point? Because I don't see anyone else right now as a very clear contender sitting here today.
Yeah, I mean, it's confusing when you really think about it because, like, there really isn't. I mean, Wendy Chu, that didn't really work out. I can't really think of anybody unless they were to bring down somebody like they did with Apollo there briefly. They could bring somebody down. Otherwise, yeah, I don't know. You're right.
I mean, we know that we'll bring it up now. Nikita Lyons is returning next week. She's been injured for a couple weeks now. She was replaced in the women's breakout tournament with I believe, an MCL sprain and tear, partial MCL sprain and tear. So she'll be coming back next week. She even built up as one of the real kind of leading prospects, I guess, in the women's division here. She never faced Mandy, or at least got really booked as a clear contender in that case. So I feel like that could be an option, if not right away, at least like she would send out to me as one potential option. I don't think we've seen Mandy versus Alba Fyre / Kaylee Ray directly one-on-one. I think they're building her up somewhat in recent weeks. That could be an option as well. I just feel like, they've had built up Roxanne as that. I don't know, the story's kind of telling itself. They're unfolding pretty naturally. Even if it's, a little further off in the distance, I feel like that might be where they're going. And if not, no, I don't know exactly who that would be, but they do have options. It's always good to have options. I already have. I said nobody jumps out like right here other than Roxanne, but they have like some options I could see kind of rising up and potentially challenging her at some point soon. Speaking of someone rising up and coming at some point soon, we had a vignette tonight for another newcomer / return man to NXT 2.0 or NXT in general here. Someone was driving in their car and they're talking about the winds of change, talking about leaving their home city of Dublin. They said, soon enough, I'm going to show you never to doubt an ace. And the former Jordan Devlin, now known as JD McDonough.
Yeah.
Don't know how to pronounce that. He's coming back to NXT 2.0. He is a former NXT Cruiserweight champion. If you don't remember, he was on NXT Prime very briefly last year, 2021, right around the time of TakeOver Stand and Deliver. He faced Santos Escobar in a ladder match where they unified the Cruiserweight titles when there's an interim champion. Santos won that one, and then Devlin went back to NXT UK. He lost a loser leaves UK title match to Ilya Dragunov. I believe it was the May 12th episode of NXT UK.
And then he was supposed to come back, wasn't he? He was in NXT, and then wasn't he supposed to, because they did the Cruiserweight where they like unified him or something? Yeah, and he was supposed to come back, and now he's finally coming back, but it's a different name. But it's been quite a while, hasn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're talking, that was already last April.
A year.
So over a year now. Which is interesting. I mean, it's also weird to me. Like, you have someone loser leaves an NXT UK match, and then like it's similar to when someone they don't tend to do this a lot. And I feel like they've done it here and there. Like, if someone loses a loser leaves NXT match and they go to the main roster, you're like falling upwards, not knocking NXT UK, but NXT they themselves have kind of established it as the prime brand. So for him to lose and have to leave NXT UK, it's interesting to me. It just comes across as kind of an interesting move in that case. It's like you're forced to leave, but you're kind of like, it's kind of like promotion in a way. At least that's how I look at it. But he's coming to NXT 2.0 from NXT UK. I remember being impressed with him. I definitely enjoyed that ladder match. Admittedly, again, as we talk about when we talk about NXT UK, I'm not all that familiar with him, but I'm looking forward to seeing him. I hope it works out better than like a kid who was like there for like a week and then we haven't seen him since. Nathan Frazier has definitely been a good example of someone coming from UK and who's impressed me on NXT Prime. So I'm hopeful, and I've already had some familiarity from when we did see him on NXT Prime. So I'm looking forward to it. They didn't give an exact date, but we're looking forward to seeing that at some point soon. Speaking of newcomers here to NXT Prime, at least, newcomers / people returning. The former Fabian Eichner, Fabian Eichner, now known as Giovanni Vinci. He had a brief promo tonight. He made his debut last week. He had a promo tonight talking about being a top-level athlete, being a supreme athlete. And then he said he sent a message in style, and John Ikemanjiro interrupted him and said he wants to find out if he's strong, style strong. Get it? Because he's
Oh boy. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about all this. It's been definitely quite the interesting thing, especially after Kushida left, returned to New Japan, said he was going to stay there for the rest of his career. What do you make of what they're doing kind of with, just him right now, being that he's on his own? They're trying to make it work, but they really haven't to this point anyway, I think.
No, and it's unfortunate. Like, I think he's very talented. It's no secret. I know I didn't care for the Jacket Time name, and therefore, kind of because of that, I just kind of have negative memories of them as a team. Well, especially without Kushida, Ikemanjiro has been kind of jobbed out to Von Wagner. He hasn't really done all that much otherwise. So that's more just I'm talking about the way he's been presented. Like, this doesn't really excite me. It's weird. Like, I kind of like cringe, but also makes sense. Like, he sent a message in style. He's style strong. Like, kind of connects the dots itself. Like, it makes sense, but also like, all right, that's kind of, a little heavy-handed. But I don't know. It's fine. I'm hopeful it'll be a way just for Giovanni Vinci. This will be like above a squash match. At least like there's some story behind it. So like that's a plus. I'm hopeful. It's when Giovanni Vinci really looked like Cesaro tonight. He had the suit on, he had the glasses, he has like the same kind of bald head. So it definitely reminded me of that in general. So and I've said it before. I do think Giovanni. I mean, he's very similar to Cesaro in a lot of ways. So I'm hopeful this new character will work out for the former Fabian Eichner. I hope that after this he could potentially get an actual story that's not so goofy. It's a little silly, the style.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, it is.
But it's fine. Something that's not silly. They did establish a pretty compelling story tonight. So Wesley had a promo. He comes out. He was talking about how he's had a really hard time the last couple of months. He went from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows. He was the tag team champions with Nash Carter, who was released. Big, very controversial situation there. And then we talked about a couple of weeks. Wesley kind of struggled to find his place. Got some wins, got some losses. Bit of having a hard time. He's talking about that. He's talking about how he wanted to prove himself. They could still stand on his own, and he's kind of turning a corner and feels like he's kind of really ready to kind of move forward here in that case. And then Trick Williams, hype man for Carmelo Hayes, North American champion, comes out and basically says, maybe you left your friends behind, and like kind of implied that like not that he was the reason Nash was fired, but like that he kind of betrayed him or like stopped him. There's some implication that he was not a good friend. He literally said, maybe you're not the good friend you think you are. So I always like kind of incorporating history, even if it's not like what actually happened. Is obviously like Nash Carter had that controversy and he got released, but kind of tapping into that situation and leaning on Wesley, as we could probably assume that's not a great situation to be in. I imagine he has been having a pretty hard time. So to kind of use that for this storyline, I don't know. I found it very interesting. It hit home with me. It seemed really real and authentic, so I like that. Wesley, he said something like, you're just playing second fiddle to Carmelo Hayes. I mentioned this earlier. This feels like it might be kind of the makings, or even tentatively, of some kind of, if maybe this is for now a feud with Trick Williams, maybe down the road, if not even down the road, could be at some point soon a feud with Carmelo Hayes potentially.
Yeah, I mean, that would make sense. Do you think that's something that would, I guess, appeal to the fans, though? I mean, I'm not sure.
Which, a feud with Trick or a feud with Carmelo?
Mello.
I mean, people seem to like Leslie. So I feel
But the fact of the matter is, like, he hasn't really done a whole lot on his own.
I feel like this could be one of those feuds where it takes someone that hasn't done a whole lot, like by themselves, I mean, and then it's like, yeah, they're not going to win the title, but it can be a damn good match, and it could really establish him as this kind of like, player to watch. Like, could be like a breakout performance where, no one thinks he's probably going to beat Carmelo for the title, but no, it could still be you've got the underdog thing going, and it more being about that story of like trying to overcome these circumstances and doing it in a way. I think, and Kamala Hayes is, I mean, he's been very much established as this top star. It feels like there's something there. I mean, I don't know. Is it going to be like this, top level, main event feud? No, but I think that they're. I feel like there are worse things. There are worse things we can do we can put on the show, and we've seen it.
Yeah, I can't argue with that.
Steven points out, he would like to see Wesley win some matches, and I'm sure he will, especially if this does come to pass. If he does wind up getting built as potential contender here, like he got one win over Zion Quinn. Zion beat him. I think Wesley won the rubber match. I'm not sure. But yeah, we still haven't seen him all that much as a singles guy. He also lost to Sanga, I believe. So it's not like he has a whole lot of momentum. So I'm even though I before I've said I'm very much an advocate of wins and losses matter. I'm trying to kind of put that aside and say, okay, like kind of beyond that, or after he gets some wins as a compromise, maybe we could do this. Maybe he beats Trick Williams as part of that potentially, because this promo definitely set the groundwork for a match. They didn't announce for next week, but Trick Williams was coming out of that for insulting him and calling him a bad friend, and Wesley fired back about how he's second fiddle to Carmelo Hayes. Like, I feel like there's something there. Admittedly, it's not a main event match, but it's interesting. I'm here for it. Again, if out of that we see potentially this thing with Carmelo, I think that's pretty interesting as well. They're continuing, and a few they are definitely going what we can tell. We had a promo from Tiffany Stratton, and John, she said, Wendy Chu sucks at life. And just like something about that, I was like, wow, that's really mean. And then she was talking about how Wendy's, she wears the onesies and she's probably never been to the gym and all this stuff. And admittedly, I've made it pretty clear I'm not a big fan of the Wendy Chu character. Did I want to cheer Tiffany Stratton? Not necessarily, but I wasn't like, oh, you're so mean, like, oh, Wendy Chu, which is that's obviously how it's supposed to work. Like, it's weird. I'm more sided with her. I was like, yeah, I don't really like Wendy Chu's gimmicks. So like, cool, I'm here for it. I'm into it. And like I said before, we were talking about last week. I've been impressed with Tiffany Stratton in the ring. She definitely feels more natural, more comfortable, more convincing as a character. So I don't know, something about this kind of hit with me. I was like, yeah, I don't know. It was one of the better parts of the show for me, or at least like, well, it's all relative, but like, I don't know. This left a positive impression on me.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely. I mean, we've said it before, but Stratton has been doing better and better each week ever since kind of having a rocky start. Things definitely turned around and got better pretty quickly. I think whatever they're doing has obviously been paying off. I'm now convinced she's like a star. Steven says must win. Would you agree that it's a must win?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because Wendy Chu, like, she already got a title shot, so they don't really need to like immediately build her back up. I think this would be a good way to build Tiffany more, as she lost she was in the finals of the women's record tournament. This would be a good way to kind of get her back on track. Ideally, yeah, to kind of win the feud here. Although, as they always do, the good guy usually wins against the bully. So I don't know if I feel all that optimistic about it. Steven agrees that she's improving, and he agrees it's a must win for Stratton. I'll agree, like, yeah, but I would say if not a must win, maybe a should win. Like, I definitely think that'd be more beneficial and advantageous, because yeah, Wendy's been established, and with that kind of character, like, the people who like it are gonna like it. It's almost to the point where like she doesn't really need to win all the time. They already gave her a title shot that she can kind of like still do her thing, do the pranks, do the the little comedy spots, whatever. Have matches, get someone, sure, but she doesn't need to be pushed as this title contender. Like next week, we'll just see her like start coming back into contention next week. We just saw that. Like, so whenever this match happens, maybe it's Great American Bash. I definitely think that'd be a good spot to have Tiffany Stratton win a pretty meaningful match like that, because of the way that Wendy has been established and she's still kind of rising up the ranks here. So I think that'd be good for. Talked about London Vinci. There were a lot of like vignettes or like more character based things tonight. And John, one that was the most memorable I guess, was the Apollo Crews one. Apollo Crews was walking the city. He's journaling. He's a man who likes to journal. Nothing wrong with that. Can be very good for you. And he's walking at night. He's journaling. Then he comes across an alley. This is never a good place to be. And he sees a mugging. He sees some guy getting beat up. And he sees someone at the outside the alley. And they say, "Oh, don't go in there. You're only going to find trouble." And Apollo Crews kind of looks around the corner and he sees the mugging happening. And then, as it turns out, he like imagines himself saving the day, like beating them up and saving the guy, and then walking away with the guy. And then, lo and behold, like he imagined it. And then we're back in real time. And then the guy repeats himself. You're only going to find trouble. And he like walks into the alley, fade to black. So I guess Apollo Crews is a superhero now, or at least like a vigilante.
Your guess is as good as mine. It was definitely confusing and hard to understand. But I guess, is that what you got out of it?
Yeah, I don't know what else we're supposed to get out of it. Like he quite literally like saved. I think the implication was in his mind he saved the day. He saved the day, and then he was going to go do that. I wrote down some of his lines. He said, "Can't run from fear. Have to control it. What happens when the opportunity confronts itself? So when you have, or I guess presents itself. So when the opportunity happens, what are you going to do?" And he had the opportunity, and he leapt into action. Superhero may not be the right word, but definitely like vigilante / crime fighter, like Daredevil kind of thing, where he's on the streets and he's fighting people, or fighting crime in this case. Are we going to get Nikki ASH being a superhero? No, but like it feels like a similar.
Fair enough. I get your
motive. He wants to. It's about justice and doing good and helping people. Where's it going to go? I don't know. Plus side, we're actually getting a character development for Apollo Crews that is not stereotypical Nigerian prince with an accent. So I'll take that as a win. Hey, I'm a big fan of superheroes. Like that's cool. That in itself, no problem with me. I don't always trust WWE to do these kind of cinematic things, or more like entertainment kind of thing. Like we saw with Nikki ASH. Like they did like the superhero thing, and it was done in a very like campy, goofy way. Admittedly, for a reason. Like it seemed like it's supposed to appeal to kids. This, I feel like they're trying to be cool, and like I don't know if it's gonna work. Kind of like the Nigerian prince gimmick. Like I felt like they're trying to do like Black Panther kind of, and like that did not go very well. And now this, like it seems more realistic, at least more down to earth. But like I don't like most of the time, with exceptions, when WWE tries to be cool, I feel like it doesn't always work out for him. But I'm hopeful that this will be an exception. We talked about the Toxic Attraction confrontation there. We had Cameron Grimes facing Idris Enife, spinning out of last week. This was a good showing for Idris. You know, his guy that's definitely not been able to show out himself as a singles guy. And then Cameron Grimes, he will face Braun Breaker for the NXT title at American Bash. So one of those matches where Grimes is going to win, but it was a good showing for Idris. It was a good way for him to kind of, have a little bit of a breakout performance there. After the match, Cameron Grimes shook his hand, and then he wound up later in the show saying to Braun Breaker, like, if that Cameron Grimes shows up, you're going to be looking at the new NXT champion. So good showing for Cameron Grimes. Good kind of chance to see Idris more of a singles guy, and more momentum for Cameron Grimes ahead of Great American Bash here.
Yeah, it was a pretty entertaining and quality match, although I think it's all a moot point at the end, because I think we can agree that it's not going to come to be anything. I would assume at the Bash there, it'll stay where it's at. There won't be a switch again, and I just don't see him being the one to dethrone Breaker, because he's not really the new. He's been there for quite a while, so it's to me it doesn't fit what they're trying to do.
No, and I think that's a shame in some ways. It's in a more general sense, that they've made it that kind of apparent that like most people that have been there for a while that are part of the old guard aren't going to get those title wins most of the time. Yeah, with exceptions, but Cameron Grimes, especially, like literally the face of 2.0 Braun Breaker. Cameron Grimes, the guy that's been there for quite a while now. It's sure it's gonna be a good match, but does not feel like there's any real reason to think that Braun's gonna lose. The next week's the go home show. We had the promo when Grimes confronted him, And that was really interesting. But this was a very brief exchange. It's probably like 10 seconds. Then they didn't really build up to that match much this week. Next week's the go home show, so I hope we'll see a little more heat, a little more development for the story, because the Joe Gacy story was a little too far in the other direction, where it's like all story, not particularly good story, and thought the match was fine. This one, it's going to be a good match, but I want a little more of a compelling story here beyond what they've already established of Cameron Grimes talking about Braun Breaker having an easier time because of his dad and everything. So hopefully we'll kind of get a little more development for that next week. But speaking of next week, we'll have an Indy Hartwell match. She had a confrontation with Kiana James. Kiana James, the resident fan of numbers. I don't know what a gimmick's supposed to be. When they introduced her during the Women's Breaker tournament, it was just very clear she likes numbers and stats. And I think she named what she does. It was like a statistician or something, or statistical analyst or something very, very numbers heavy. And just ever since she's arrived, it feels so campy. She's just so obsessed with numbers, and it's so over on your nose, where she said to Indy, I deal with facts and numbers, and you're too soft and emotional. It's just so one dimensional. And we talked about it when they introduced several of the Women's Breaker tournament people. You can start one dimensional and then progress and add layers. We're not really seeing that so far. This is very limited, and it just feels kind of right out of the 90s or early 2000s. It seems so old school and just stereotypical / just very limited. It keeps coming to mind, and this feels like a way to have Indy Hartwell get a pretty easy win. Not to knock Kiana James or anything, just one of those examples of those NXT 2.0 characters that is not working for me, at least.
Yeah, it wasn't very appealing and or entertaining. There's not really a whole lot to say. The character work isn't the best. I mean, maybe it's not at fault of the character, more so the creative, but there's not really a whole lot to say. I mean, it needs work. We'll say that.
And she's still starting out. I'm not trying to write her off or anything. Just I have not been blown away from what we've seen so far. Here's hoping it gets better from here on out. Something that I always enjoy the Andre Chase University stuff. But John, tonight I was very surprised to find out it's an actual school. Andre Chase University is a physical location. It is a place. We had a vignette with Thea Hale. She was moving in. It was move-in day. Classes start next week. She's moving all her stuff in like any college student at the start of the semester. And lo and behold, she's rooming with Bonnie Hayward, another student at Chase U. Little scandalous, little mixed, boy-girl dorming there. I don't know. That seemed a little odd to me. And then the people on Twitter were going off about
and
that.
It's June.
Well, yeah, all right. Fair. Maybe it's summer school. Maybe it's something.
Man, I'll tell you right now, all the Twitter people that were saying what they thought or whatever, that was exactly what was going through my head.
Did not seem PG.
To me, there's no way that this doesn't end up somehow, some way, that direction.
Hey, we've talked about it before. NXT is a very horny show. So
well, I would be very surprised if we went a month tops without any reference to any of that.
Yeah, it's gonna happen. I was just very surprised. I've always been thinking it's not a real school. It's Andre Chase, in a classroom.
It's not.
Okay. In NXT world, John,
I got you.
In universe, but no, I had to clarify that when I tweeted. I was I can see it now. If I tweet, oh, it's a real school, people are no, it's not. No, I mean in context, they want us to think it's a real school, whereas I thought it was Andre Chase in a, I don't even know, in a room somewhere in the arena, just happening to have this podium or whatever. I thought it was supposed to be this fake school. And now they want to think it's a real school. It was an unexpected twist. Something that was not unexpected was Von Wagner getting another win tonight. This time, the latest victim was Brooks Jensen, he who hurt his hand a while ago, and now he's back in action. I guess he wasn't fully cleared or whatever. Von was attacking his hand, and it was very clearly a weakness for Brooks Jensen. Everyone else was banned from ringside. No Josh Briggs, no Robert Stone, no Sophia Cromwell, nobody. It's one-on-one, mano-a-mano, and yet another win for Von Wagner. Nothing else to it. Just more momentum, more winning for Von Wagner. Didn't cut a promo, so I can't even talk about that. This was very straightforward. It was a match. He won. No interference. It was a match. He's a big dude.
It's likely going to lead, I would assume, to another match with Briggs.
Yeah, because Briggs beat him. So
yeah, and this time they'll probably get revenge. I don't know, especially that it was the end of the show. I don't know.
Yeah, I would expect.
Wasn't the best.
I expect we might get a rematch at American Bash. Maybe it's a stipulation thing. I don't know. But at the very least, they could do some kind of rematch there to get Von Wagner that win back. Because I feel like that's what they're going to do. Because they are trying to establish Von Wagner as a pretty, a menacing presence here on NXT. And what better way to do that than, if he's not unbeatable, at least get those wins back so that he's got more momentum going for him. And whatever happens next, we'll see. Maybe building up for Braun Breaker at some point. I don't know. Don't think he's quite there yet, but that remains to be seen. Otherwise, here, another feud we've been seeing going on for a little bit now. Alba Fyre, Lash Legend. They've been having some exchanges. Lash attacked Alba last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago. They had a singles match. It was going pretty well. Alba Fyre, former NXT UK Women's Champion. Very, very established. We know what she's about. Very cool entrance with her new name and everything. This felt like definitely a good chance to have her win and to get, as we talked about earlier, maybe climb up the rankings there for the women's title. Instead, Lash Legend hit her with Fire's own bat, forced the DQ. Feels like that's one we're going to get a rematch potentially at the American Bash.
Yeah, I would agree with everything you pretty much just said there. The character has been actually pretty good for being one of the newer ones with the name change. This is actually one that I've liked and think has worked out so far, so props to that. Where it goes from here, though, I'm not sure. I mean, that could be. I thought at first that could be a legitimate challenger for Mandy, but we already got that. But this was before the repackage, so who knows if they'll go back to it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I guess technically, like in context, we don't really know. Like, they often pretend, when someone gets renamed, by and large, like if at least when they go from NXT to the main roster, they pretend that like they're very different people. But whereas with NXT, like Katana Chance is still teaming with Kane Carter, so I don't know. Maybe it's a bit of a middle ground where it's like we know it's the same people, but it's a different name, so it's like kind of like a fresh start in a way. I feel like eventually we will see Alba Fyre face Mandy Rose because she does have that pedigree, that background. So maybe she'll get that win back. Well, she won tonight. Maybe she'll pin Lash Legend next time around, get more momentum, and potentially challenge for the title at some point after that. Speaking of titles, the main event match here, Carmelo Hayes defending against Tony D'Angelo, North American title. I thought this was a very interesting matchup in the first place. Two very distinct opposing characters. Carmelo Hayes, the A champion, carried himself like he's all that. And Tony D'Angelo, the Donovan NXT, is very, been doing his own thing. He's got the family now. And he had told Santos Escobar on his show, if he doesn't leave with the title, it's going to be hell to pay. Santos Escobar, the unwilling or the unhappy member, forced to join the Tony's family here, the stable, wound up costing him the match. In the end, a hard-fought match, a good main event match for the title. Santos Escobar had some brass knuckles, and just as Tony thought he was going to give them to him, Santos slid him all the way across the ring to Carmelo. He blasted Tony in the face. Carmelo wins the match blatantly as a result of Santos Escobar's interference, or help, I should say, his help there. So I wonder if we were going to see this Santos-Tony thing kind of implode and maybe see some kind of epic finale at American Bash, because like that was a very clear violation of what he was supposed to do.
Yeah, I would expect there to be something along the lines of what you just said, maybe some kind of specialty match, no disqualification, last man standing, something like that. Finally have them go their separate ways, maybe have the Legado del Fantasma up on the main roster at some point soon. Maybe that would make sense. However, the match wasn't really surprising to me, although I read 2 weeks ago. Also, I know you're one that doesn't like to read into what happens Later, this happened to be one of the few occurrences where NXT was filming ahead because they're touring Florida. They're getting used to being on the road. So tonight's show was actually filmed 2 weeks ago today. So I had read then about what was going to happen, and I wasn't surprised then. And then seeing it play out, certainly not surprising as well. They did do a lot of build up for next week, which again will now be live again. So we'll see where that ends up going. But definitely nothing surprising tonight, I didn't think.
Yeah, I'll give the show ratings for a minute here. Graham Fan says maybe we'll do like a rematch of the 6-man here. I mean, I guess maybe to kind of spin off that. I don't think we'll do 3-on-3 because 2 Dimes got released. So unless he brings in another goon, I don't know if I like that option because I enjoyed the 6-man last time around, but they're definitely gonna need some adjustment there because 2 Dimes got released. But kind of with that in mind, Steven says they could do Loser Leaves NXT singles match one more time, Santos versus Tony.
I'd like that, yeah.
We cut out all the the assistants or whatever the teammates, have it down man to man. I think that's somebody said for that. That'd be fitting for American Bash. Definitely. I've really enjoyed this feud. I think it's kind of the best thing going on NXT right now, and it has been that way for pretty much the duration. So I'll be sad to see it end, assuming it does have this blow-off match at some point soon. And I think that Loose Leaves NXT match would be a very good way to do it. And but then I wonder, Loose Leaves NXT, like I would assume Santos will lose. Would he go to the main roster? I don't necessarily see him going to NXT UK because we talked about earlier. It's like someone loses an loser leaves NXT match, like
main event.
Oh, can you believe Judgment Day was on main event this week? Like, I don't even know what's going on with that show anymore. And the 24/7 title change hands, like.
It did? I didn't even know that till you said that.
Spoiler alert, sorry, but
Rey Mysterio too.
Oh, it's crazy. Like, so who knows? Maybe if one of these guys loses, they'll sign a contract to be on main event. But
you know what they're turning into, right?
What?
Dark.
No, because main event is like. Well, actually, I could. Well, no, because like
you know it's true.
Well, it's weird because like they were that kind of, and now they've got Judgment Day on it. It's like it's kind of like AEW Dark because like AEW Dark does have matches with like some bigger names
that are kind of random,
very random. Interesting though. Do I think Santos Escobar is going to wind up on the main event? Not necessarily. Do I think he could do great things if he winds up on the main roster? For sure, I definitely think so.
Yes, Grim Fan 2 Dimes was released after the tapings 2 weeks ago. He was released last weekend, so that's why they kept him on the shows.
Yeah, they filmed they filmed. I think it was this week, last week. I think it was just 2, maybe they've been even 3 episodes.
It was just 2 weeks, yeah.
It was the 2. So they filmed those. That they're done, and whatever he did, it doesn't. The reason he was released, it doesn't seem so bad that like they would have had to edit and remove him or reshoot it or anything. Like they taped it, they kept him in.
It was, I think, from somebody reported that it was like a policy violation or something, which was not surprising. That they would keep him on the show and just say, take care of yourself, get clean or whatever, come back in here or something like that.
Whatever
and he admitted. I mean, he admitted in his tweet, like we all make mistakes. We'll learn. So he has acknowledged that he did something wrong.
And whatever it is, it was low grade enough that they kept him on the show once they taped it because it was already in the can. Like there's.
I feel like this was like more so because we've seen this before where you get like 30-day suspension or something. I feel like this might have been something to send a message to the younger talent that we're not gonna settle for this.
Yeah, absolutely. So that and stuff like this has happened before, and not just in WWE. It happens generally. You'll have companies tape stuff weeks in advance, and things happen. People get released or injured, or who even knows, and then it kind of affects things going forward. But it was already taped, so they had to air it. Again, unless it was so bad they wanted to remove him entirely. That wasn't the case, and I'm curious to see, are they going to do like a he got kidnapped thing, or he disappeared?
Yeah, that'll be. I mean, they've had a week and a half to think about it now, so.
Yeah, so I am curious to see what happens there. But yeah, like we were talking about, not the most remarkable episode of NXT. Something's happened. We had some as we were talking about before. Like for me, I kind of go off of overall NXT, like how much happened, like how much we're in the business of writing news, like how much eventful things happen. No, we got the Jordan Devlin return. Nikita Lyons come back next week. They announced the card for some matches next week, but by and large, like nothing too major happened. It was a fine show, but not the strongest either. So for me, I would probably say maybe a 6-ish. Seems reasonable. It was fine. It was a fine show. What do you say, John?
I'd go with a 5.5.
Yeah,
A little below average, not really the best. The ones they film ahead usually aren't the best though, so.
Yeah. Stephen Green with a 6.5. I mean, yeah, maybe I was a little generous. Below average, 6, decent, somewhere in that range. 6.5 seems to be kind of just a fine show. That's usually my level for like a fine show. Grim Fans Raw is a 9.3. We didn't talk about Raw. I'll give my brief thoughts about some of it in a second, at least some of the big things that happened. NXT was 7.7. I explained to everyone the show. So we had a schedule change. I worked Monday morning and early afternoon, whereas usually I work like mid-afternoon all the way through the evening. So I'm covering Raw, I'm watching Raw, and then I do the post-show. Took a rare chance to have a night off, or to having worked the day already. I didn't exactly want to, watch Raw, cover Raw. Like, I took the time just to, have a nice easy night to recharge batteries a little bit. And Raw seemed very interesting. We had the return of Elias, which was odd. Seemed a little goofy. And then next week we're going to get Elrod. All right. Vince McMahon was on the show to remind us or to announce something that's already been announced weeks ago. Okay. The one thing that was two things were definitely noteworthy. Rhea Ripley is injured, and to some extent, so she was pulled from her title match at Money in the Bank. Carmelo wound up getting the title match instead by earning the right to be the replacement. Looking forward to that. And Bobby Lashley will challenge Theory for the U.S. title. So they're blowing up the card for Money in the Bank pretty nicely. But yeah, definitely a shame about Rhea Ripley there. I was looking forward to that match, and I hope.
So did they say what it actually was?
I don't think so.
Is it actually like this dental issues thing he's talking about, or is that just speculation? Or
I remember saying she had some dental work done. I don't know if that's because I remember that was last week. I remember seeing that. It may have been last Tuesday, which leads me to wonder like why they didn't announce it right away, unless something else happened. I haven't seen anything really beyond that. And she posted a gif of like the Vegeta from Dragon Ball Z, like in this recovering chamber. It's like to say she's coming back, and she said soon. So I imagine she won't be gone too long. So could it be the teeth thing? As the grandparents, they didn't say it yet. I mean, yeah, when in doubt, be vague. So she's just not clear to go, but it doesn't seem all that serious. So best wishes to her. Hopefully she'll face Bianca maybe at SummerSlam or something. That's still a pretty big match they could do. Yeah, Chris Francis, they just said she was not cleared by the doctors, and they left it at that. So, yeah, the Elias thing was odd. Probably about what I was expecting, short of Damian Sandow showing up, which I didn't really expect him to. He had just retired at NWA. But now we're getting Elrod, whatever that means. And yeah, John Cena's coming back next week. I'm hyped. I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited. I'm curious to see what's going to happen with that. We'll be back on track to talk about it next week on the Raw Post Show. Otherwise, here on Tuesday, talk about NXT. Next week's the go home show for Great American Bash. Otherwise, schedule permitting, Robert and I are here to talk about Friday Night SmackDown on Fridays. Two Dynamite dudes, Marcus and Dominic, cover all things AEW. So make sure to check that out as well. Otherwise, a great stream of interviews constantly come at you guys. Bill Pritch recently interviewed Ric Flair. We interviewed who we got? I interviewed Camille. Bill interviewed Kylan King. Bunch of stuff for ahead of NWA and stuff still in the can and stuff always coming out. I interviewed Tony Deppen at GCW. That went out late last week, so make sure to check that out as well. All that stuff and more. Always available, including post shows on SoundCloud, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, all that good stuff and more. You know where it's at. So please leave a like and subscribe. We appreciate it so much. We appreciate you guys for taking the time and talking about wrestling with us, even in a night like this, where it's a fine episode of NXT, wasn't anything. All of that all that riveting, but we try to make the most of it and have a good time together. That's always our goal here. And with that in mind, John, here at WrestleZone, because the world outside is a very scary place, we do one thing. Love all it is. You can tell me what that is.
Enjoy the show.
Indeed. Thanks for listening, everybody.